The world of the Iron Horsemen Motorcycle Club was built on concrete, chrome, and a deeply held skepticism of the law. They were the shadows on the highway, the roar that silenced the suburbs, draped in leather and tattoos that told stories the average citizen never dared to read. To the town of Havenwood, they were the bandidos, the outlaws, the problem. But sometimes, when the conventional world fails, you need a different kind of strength, a different kind of justice. This is the story of how the very men deemed the villains of society became the last desperate hope for an innocent little girl. It was a typical sweltering Saturday afternoon at the club's headquarters, a sprawling, run-down garage known as the Pit. The air hung thick with the smell of gasoline, stale beer, and the faint metallic scent of ozone from the welding torches. Inside, the club president, a man known only as Grizz, sat at a scarred wooden table. Grizz was a mountain of a man, his face a roadmap of hard living, his eyes perpetually narrowed against the sun and the world's judgment. He was discussing club business, territory, protection money, the usual dark matters that kept the Iron Horsemen operating outside the velvet ropes of polite society, when the meeting was abruptly interrupted. The door to the pit wasn't just open, it was hanging ajar, letting in a shaft of unforgiving summer light. Standing silhouetted in that harsh light was a figure that did not belong. She was small, perhaps 7 years old, dressed in a faded yellow sundress and dusty sandals. Her hair, the color of corn silk, was tied back in 2 uneven pigtails. Her name was Lily. She was the neighbor's kid from the rundown complex across the street, a place the horsemen usually ignored unless the rent was due to their silent landlord, a man who preferred their reputation to keep his tenants in line. Lily was shivering despite the heat. She looked like a lost sparrow that had accidentally wandered into a wolf's den. The room, moments before filled with the low rumble of 20 hardened men, fell instantly silent. Every head turned. These men had faced down armed rivals, hostile police raids, and everything the criminal underworld could throw at them. But a terrified little girl. That was a threat they hadn't trained for. Lily's eyes were huge, blue pools filled not just with fear, but with a deep, crushing exhaustion. She looked at the faces, the beards, the scars, the patches, and saw only giants. Grizz, who had kids and grandkids he rarely saw but always thought about, felt a familiar, unwelcome tightening in his chest. He slowly pushed back his chair, the screech of wood against concrete sounding like a gunshot in the silence. He rose, all 6'5" of him, moving with the deceptive slowness of a predator. "What do you want, little bird?" His voice was a low rasp, rough as sandpaper. He tried to soften it, but decades of yelling over motorcycle engines and the noise of the streets made it a difficult task. Lily took a shaky step forward, then another. She walked right past the group of hulking men, past Axe, the enforcer, past Reaper, the sergeant-at-arms, past men whose hands were known only for their destructive power, and stopped directly in front of Grizz. She didn't speak. She just looked up, and the raw, silent terror in her eyes communicated more than any loud cry ever could. Grizz knelt, an act that looked unnatural for his massive frame. He lowered his head, trying to meet her gaze on an even level. He saw the faint, almost hidden bruises beneath the collar of her dress, the way she clutched a dirty, threadbare teddy bear. "Tell me your name, honey." "Lily," she whispered. Her voice was barely a breath, the faintest sound against the heavy stillness of the room. She glanced quickly over her shoulder, back toward the blinding sunlight outside, as if afraid she was being followed. Her lips trembled. Grizz waited, patient, silent. The Iron Horsemen were many things, but they were never cruel to the defenseless. It was a strange, unwritten rule that predated even the club's constitution. They recognized when someone was truly lost. Then, Lily leaned forward, placing one small, trembling hand on Grizz's enormous, tattooed forearm. She pulled herself closer, lifted her head to his ear, and spoke the words that stopped the world for the Iron Horsemen MC. Her breath was warm and smelled faintly of cheap toothpaste. The words were a fragile, desperate plea, uttered with the chilling clarity of absolute terror. Grizz felt the words physically impact him, striking his soul with the force of a wrecking ball. The sound was so quiet only he could hear it, but the message, the awful, gut-wrenching context radiated out and struck every man in the room. When she finished, Lily pulled back, her eyes squeezed shut, bracing for a rejection that never came. Grizz didn't move for a long moment. He didn't look at his men. He just stayed there, kneeling, the club's fearsome president, paralyzed by the simple, terrifying honesty of a child suffering. When he finally rose, he moved like granite shifting. The change in the room was palpable. The air didn't just feel still, it felt dangerous, pressurized. The biker, known for his calculated ruthlessness, now had the look of a man who had just seen the one thing he could not abide. He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of every patch-wearing member. In their gaze, he saw not judgment, but a deep, burning, shared rage. They had all heard enough, or seen enough, to understand the gravity of the situation. They knew what the club's code demanded now. The law might turn a blind eye, the neighbors might stay silent, but the Iron Horsemen would not. This little girl had just invoked the highest, most ancient law of the streets, protection. And for the Iron Horsemen, that protection was absolute. They were about to trade their reputation for something far more valuable, a clean conscience. The quiet meeting was over. The rescue mission was about to begin. Every man in the club knew that from this moment forward, they were no longer just bikers. They were Lily's personal, terrifying guardians. Grizz rose from his knees, his face stripped bare of its usual hardened veneer, revealing something ancient and cold. The silence in the pit was absolute, yet underneath it, the machinery of the Iron Horsemen had already begun to turn. He didn't need to speak. Every man there understood the code. They looked at Lily, still clutching the tattered teddy bear, and then back at Grizz, seeing the singular, deadly focus in his eyes. This wasn't about turf wars or drug deals. This was about something primal, something they could all respect, protecting the weak. Axe Reaper, you two stay here. Nobody comes in, nobody leaves. Lily stays inside with you. Get her some soda, maybe some ice cream, and for God's sake, clean up that language. Grizz's voice was low, carrying the weight of command. Axe, the most volatile man in the room, nodded stiffly, his massive hands suddenly appearing clumsy as he gently led Lily toward the kitchen area. He glanced at the girl's retreating form, a flicker of something close to paternal concern crossing his harsh features. Grizz then addressed the rest of the club. We're taking a ride. Clean, quiet and fast. No colors, no patches, just bikes and leather. This isn't a club move. This is a personal matter. And when we're done, that piece of garbage won't ever see the sun on this side of the state again. We don't want his blood. We want his fear and his permanent absence. He tapped the table once, a sharp, final sound. Within 5 minutes, the roar of half a dozen massive engines fractured the quiet afternoon. The Iron Horsemen rode out, not as a defiant parade, but as a surgical unit, low to the ground, moving with a calculated, terrifying efficiency. Their target lived just 3 blocks away in the same decaying complex. The perpetrator, a man named Gerald, was Lily's mother's boyfriend, a bloated, loudmouth parasite who had managed to intimidate an entire block into silent compliance. They found his pickup truck parked carelessly on the lawn, a lazy beacon of his self-importance. The bikers pulled up, killing their engines simultaneously. The sudden cessation of noise was as loud as any explosion. Grizz dismounted, followed by 4 of his most trusted men. No one spoke. They didn't need to. Grizz didn't bother with the door. He simply put his shoulder into it once, hard. The cheap wood splintered around the frame, and the door flew inward, hitting the wall with a thunderous bang. Inside, Gerald was asleep on a sagging couch, the television blaring sports commentary. He bolted upright, rubbing the sleep from his eyes, his bluster already failing as he registered the sheer size and silent menace of the men standing over him. He started to stammer. What the hell do you want? Get out of my house! Grizz stepped closer, blocking the light from the broken doorway. He didn't raise his voice. He kept it to a low, intense growl that vibrated with suppressed violence. The little bird talked Gerald. The name hung in the air, a final verdict. Gerald's face went instantly pale, the blood draining away, leaving behind a sick, mottled grey. He knew the rules of the neighborhood, rules he thought protected him. But the look in Grizz's eyes told him he had broken a far older, deadlier rule, one that the Iron Horsemen enforced without hesitation or appeal. "I don't know what you're talking about. That lying little—" Gerald tried to scramble off the couch, but before he could move, two bikers had him pinned. There was no theatrical beating, no grand show of strength. Just a few moments of cold, agonizing realization for Gerald. Grizz leaned in, his face inches from Gerald's terrified eyes. He detailed, with chilling precision, the consequences if Gerald ever came within a 500-mile radius of Havenwood again. He didn't threaten his life, but he threatened the things he valued far more: his comfort, his anonymity, his future. The threat was so absolute, so convincingly delivered, that Gerald didn't even fight. He just lay there, whimpering, a broken man before a silent, immovable jury. They left him a simple, terrifying choice: a clean break or a life spent constantly looking over his shoulder. They ensured he had no easy access to his mother's belongings and escorted him out of the town under the shadow of their bikes, watching until he was well past the state line, his battered truck shrinking to a speck on the distant highway. He was removed quietly and permanently from Lily's orbit. Back at the pit, the afternoon sun was beginning its slow descent. Lily, tired but no longer shaking, was sitting on Axe's massive knee, eating a chocolate ice cream cone. Her mother, completely overwhelmed and unable to cope with her partner's behavior or protect her daughter, arrived later, notified by a discreet, untraceable phone call placed by the club. The Horsemen, avoiding a direct legal confrontation they knew could take months and traumatize Lily further, had already arranged a safe transition. Using their network of connections, the kind of network that operates in the gray areas of the law, they secured Lily a temporary place with a reliable, vetted family several towns over, people who specialized in short-term safe haven for children in crisis. It was the only way to ensure Lily's immediate, untraceable safety without the slow wheels of official bureaucracy. As they watched Lily leave, tucked safely into the back of a nondescript vehicle, the bikers felt a weight lift. They were still the outlaws, still the bad guys in the eyes of the law-abiding world. But that night, as the engines cooled and the fluorescent lights of the pit buzzed quietly, they felt the satisfaction of a job done not for profit, not for reputation, but simply because it had to be done. Grizz watched the taillights fade. He knew they'd done the right thing, the only thing. The Iron Horsemen were outlaws by trade, but tonight they had been protectors by code. And sometimes the heroes don't wear capes. They wear leather, ride iron, and carry a deep, quiet rage against injustice. Lily would never forget the roar of those engines or the terrifying kindness of the men who saved her.